Welcome to another episode of Industry Celebrities. My name is Kimberly Scott. Industry Celebrities is a podcast where I interview industry professionals in any industry. I ask them questions, 4 easy questions, about their industry or their passion. And my guests also share a little advice to their younger self. If you want to tune into other episodes, you can do so by going to thatkimberly.com and choose which platform you want to listen to, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Amazon, Alexa, you name it. You can do so. And now I'd like to welcome my guest today, Heather. Hi, Heather. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much, Kimberly, for having me on. It's an honor.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. So tell it about yourself and what industry you're in.
Yeah, so I am a podcast host and online business owner. I've been doing this full time for about 2.5 years. I left my regular job as a therapist to build a business online and do that full time. So a little crazy, a little unconventional, but I love it. It's so much fun. And yeah.
So you went from being a therapist to podcasting, online business.
Yes.
What sparked why? Like, how did you get that inspiration?
I'm crazy, first of all. I think we should start it with that. I think I lost my mind. I've always just done things a little bit differently. And I love freedom. I love creativity. I'm the type of person that I want to create something and I don't want to feel bound by things. And there's nothing wrong with having structure and all that. Some people thrive off of it. It's just not me. Being told you have to go do this and do that and all of that, it's hard. And then two, I became really obsessed with this idea of that you could create something from nothing and really that you could build something as big as you wanted it to be with the internet and the things that we have in our hands, just like this phone right here. And not only the financial freedom, the aspect of that, but as you and I were talking offline, the time freedom. I became a mother right after I graduated from school, and being involved in my 2 little girls' life was just huge for me. And I wanted to be able to not only see them at dinner time and bath time,
but be able to pick and choose. It's definitely your freedom. I always tell people you can't put a dollar amount on your happiness or your freedom. So for you to be able to choose when you want to work, which you work, I also tell people all the time, you work harder for yourself than you do anyone else. However, you can pick and choose, if you want to spend time with the family, you can do that. You don't have to ask somebody. You just have to make sure all your other stuff gets done and you do it.
I think it's the biggest misconception. I've had so many people say, oh, you just have so much time. You're just at home on the internet.
Yes.
I work so many hours. I've never calculated all my hours, but I know it's, well above a full-time job. But I can do it in my pajamas, and I can do it on a Saturday at 2 p.m. or I can do it in Colorado when we're on vacation with my laptop. So there is a lot of work, and the stress that comes with it, the uncertainty. I mean, there's so much self-doubt. I mean, I want to be honest with that. There is a lot that's a downside to it, and that's really hard. However, it's just the price that you have to pay for some of those quote luxuries.
Yeah. 100%. I do believe that the positives outweigh the negatives. But the stress level is things, and you can correct, like for me, it's because I want to do the right thing. I want to make sure I am giving the most value. Do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. Like my grandfather taught me that your word is gold. You stick by it and always do the right thing. Being an entrepreneur, it's so much better. I can't even imagine going back to corporate America.
I can't either. I always forget people have regular jobs. They're like, oh, I can't 'cause I have to work. I'm like, what? Oh yeah.
So you, so let me ask this question. Podcasting, how would you recommend somebody dipping their toe or doing podcasting if they wanted to, like you said, you can start on your phone. I tell people all the time, after listening, Gary Vee was the one, us talking offline, we're both mutual Gary Vee fans. And I saw him speak and he mentioned a tool that Anchor that is one of many, like, there's so many different platforms. How did you, and what would you recommend people starting with when it comes to podcasting?
Start and jump in and don't dip your toe. Like, don't dip your toe, jump in the pool and just
Yeah.
start doing it. Like, we've got to stop taking ourselves so seriously and micromanaging everything and critiquing. I just did an episode about negative self-talk, and we're so hard on ourselves as creators. I call myself more of a creator than an entrepreneur. I identify with that so much more.
Yeah.
And you want, like you mentioned, you want to do good work. You want to impact people. You want it to be meaningful, but we have to understand that what's meaningful is authentic and genuineness. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to produce excellence, but you only really learn through action. I love the term action creates clarity. You don't really figure out who you are, what your message is, whether you like Anchor, Libsyn, or what microphone you like, or what position your camera, like you don't know any of that until you do it. And people are so much more forgiving than you are of yourself. And we have to remember that, or otherwise we're going to be paralyzed and immobile and never take action.
Absolutely. That was definitely a lesson, hard lesson learned for me, because coming from the video world, I was always behind the scenes and selling it, never, and I hated to be on camera. I felt very awkward. So it took some time, but I had to jump in. I had to get used to hearing my voice, and I'm still get hung up on it.
I do too. I still don't like listening to my voice. I critique myself so much. I mean, nobody's immune to that. I think the only difference is some people feel that and they act anyway, and some people feel it and they say, screw it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Turn off the voices in the head, people. Just do it. Just jump in. That's, I 100% agree with you, because was one of the hurdles I had to overcome. Why should someone consider podcasting?
I think if you have a genuine curiosity and interest in it, it's worth exploring. It may not be something that you do forever, and that's okay. I just think the uniqueness of the individual is so cool that the thing that interests you or drives you or you're good at is going to be different than me. I mean, some people just love writing and they're like, I could just blog all day. My husband's like that. My husband,
I suck at writing so bad.
Me too. People are like, why are you podcasting? I said, because I can't write. That's the reason I podcast. I like to talk. It's easier for me to look at you, Kimberly, in the eyes and connect with you as a human and talk to you. Brian likes to, daydream and write all this stuff. And I think you need to lean, like Gary talks about, lean into your strengths and what you're good at. If speaking comes naturally to you, speak. If writing comes naturally to you, write, and don't overthink it. Just do the work that's within you to do and trust that there's something bigger at play.
Absolutely. And overthinking it. I love that you said that, because if you overthink something, and I still do it, I catch myself all the time telling myself, don't overthink it, just hit publish, or hit play. It'll be okay. Because I have the gift to gab as well, but because sometimes I don't get the words out, I was very uncomfortable. But the more I have podcasted and practiced, the better and more comfortable I feel. I'm not perfect by no means. I'm, 2 years later, I'm still ummins and grabbing for words. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I have to really think hard about what I want to say, and it might not come out right. I have to use Grammarly. I mean, I suck at spelling. So
I do too. I have Grammarly on my computer. That's why people are going to love you, Kimberly, is they're going to be like, you know what? Kimberly is a human being.
Yeah.
And just like me, she struggles with this and that. Heather struggles with this and that. And so that's why people are resonating with Brene Brown so much. It's just because we're so desperate as a culture to hear this idea and this thought that, you know what? It's okay to be a human, and it's okay to be a leader and an influencer and show up as a human being and be imperfect, because that gives other people the freedom to be imperfect too.
Who's Brene Brown?
The PhD sociologist. She's not a psychologist, social work. That's what she does.
Okay.
But she writes all these books about vulnerability and the gifts of imperfection. And so about being the most courageous thing in the world that you can do, and the strongest thing in the world you can do, is be vulnerable and open up. And that's the hardest thing. But I think we need that, especially in the online space where everything's edited and perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but I'll send you the book, Kimberly.
Okay. Thank you. It did later in life get better at self-awareness and also not being so hard on myself, so that way I wouldn't be so hard on others, because I can meet them where they're at, and I don't
Yep.
get disappointed, so I wish there was more talk about that when I was younger, self-awareness and not beating yourself up. But obviously it comes with generations and time.
Yep.
People like, Renee or Gary Vee, stop the noise, don't be so hard on yourself, and all the things, and then social media just has really, for me, made it better because I can network with other people outside of my circle, of
Yes.
apartment industry folks, which I love my apartment industry folks. Getting reconnection on LinkedIn has been very valuable. Teaching myself other platforms that I at one time had other people managing for me, and starting over again was
Yep.
very valuable for me, media realm, because being the first on YouTube with our company, and then having to give that up, and not having access to any of those videos, and starting from scratch, one, same
Yeah.
thing with Instagram, starting from zero. It was very eye-opening,
Yeah. I
and
bet.
exciting at the same time. So my standing question for this podcast is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah. I love the question. I would go back and say, Heather Parady, or I was Heather Worsham at the time. Heather Worsham, listen,
Okay.
learn how to make money, figure out what you're good at, and build something sustainable. Like that's what I would do. And I don't mean that so you could be like a multimillionaire and go lay on the beach. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's a goal. That'd be awesome. But so that you could free your capacity to think about like what kind of impact you want to make in the world and what kind of human you want to be and what you want to contribute. Because I think there's so many good people out there who want to create things, want to write books, they want to start nonprofits, they want to do this stuff. And you absolutely can. And it's an excuse to say that you can't while you're working, because I've done it.
Mhm.
However, think about if you just had the freedom,
Yeah.
where you didn't have to worry about all this stuff and you could create and all of that. So I think I wish I would have started the journey that I'm on right now back in my early 20s. But at the time, I was just dating and thinking about boys and being ridiculous.
Yeah. Well,
So,
but you wouldn't be where you're at. You wouldn't be the person you are if you hadn't gone through
yeah,
that.
I'd be a lot richer. Are you kidding me?
Well, you never know. You might not be. You never know. I
I know, I'm just joking.
mean, there's I've had several people that always say, don't plan, because it's God's plan, not anybody else's.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it definitely, and I learned that the hard way as well. I just stopped planning in advance.
Yeah, I feel you.
Try to take every day one step at a time. But I love your advice. Absolutely. Like, it's having goals is a great thing, um, when you're young, for sure. It keeps you on task. So tell listeners how they can get a hold of you, connect with you, learn more about what you're doing.
Sure. So I think the most important thing is the show Unconventional Leaders podcast. You can find it anywhere, iTunes, Spotify,
Hmm.
etc. We interview leaders who have built things from the ground up and who are unconventional through and through. So if that resonates with you, I'd love for you to check that out.
Okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you being on today. Thank you, Heather, and for your time. And listeners, if Heather's advice resonated with you, please, send it to a friend, tell someone, uh, tune into her podcast as well. If you would like to be on this podcast again, please go to thatkimberly.com and sign up. Choose which platform to listen to this podcast on, and even possibly rate it. That would be awesome. So until next week, stay positive, and remember, sharing is caring. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Kimberly.